Here's Harry. He's here.
Oh, Jerry, I thought you said Harry wasn't joining us.
No, I said Dave Jenkins.
Oh, I could have sworn you said Harry.
Oh, no. I said Harry was going to be joining us on Friday morning for our meeting with Bob Shedlock.
Oh, okay. Okay, we are live on YouTube. It is 7:01.
Okay. Thank you, Virginia. Good evening and welcome to the Borough Council Special Meeting, March 31st, 2021, 7 p.m. In attendance, we have Ms. Lopez.
Present.
Ms. Simrel.
Present.
Solicitor Hayes.
Here.
Mr. Jenkins is absent. Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Kehoe.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Shields.
Here.
And our junior council member, Mr. Thomas. Thank you.
Present.
First item on our agenda is our public comment. And this evening, our first public comment is coming from our County Commissioner, Chris Schermack. Virginia.
He hasn't connected on.
Okay, so when he connects on,
We'll bring him on. Until then, we can move on to the next one.
Okay.
Oh, and I have no public comment for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Our next item on our agenda is Joe Durkin with Riley Associates. It's the engineering firm.
Right.
For the Clark Summit State Hospital. And
There he
we'll
is.
have our solicitor lead us off on that.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Joe, can you hear me okay? Joe Durkin? You're muted. There we go. Joe, can you hear us? Hear me okay?
Yep. I can hear you fine.
Okay, Joe, well, Commissioner Schermack hasn't signed on yet, so you're first up to bat. We have all of our members of council who are led by our president, Jerry Carey, here tonight. The only one who's not here is Councilman Dave Jenkins. In addition, our mayor, Herman Johnson, is online, as well as our junior councilman, Ron Thomas. I had provided our council with a very brief overview of the purpose of you coming to speak with us tonight, which basically, as I understand it, it involves connecting the existing sanitary sewer treatment plant up near the state hospital with the treatment facility that is operated by the Abington Wastewater Sewer Authority down in South Abington. So I'll pass it over to you. I know, Joe, that you wanted to do screen sharing. I could do that. I could bring up that map if you want me to, or if you want to bring it up, it doesn't matter.
Sure. I'll let you know, Kevin. Maybe just a few remarks to introduce myself and then introduce the project. My name is Joe Durkin. I'm a vice president with Riley Associates Engineers. Our main office is in Pittston, Pennsylvania. We have branch offices in Scranton and up in the Poconos and Stroudsburg. Our firm has been around since 1930, so we're trying to get to 100 years shortly here. I am actually, I grew up in Clark's Green behind Our Lady of Peace School, and my mom lives over by in the townhouses over by the country club of Scranton behind the library. So I'm very familiar with the area and the streets, and have more affinity, I think, sometimes for Clark Summit, Clark's Green than for Pittston, but don't tell anybody I said that. So this project, I think Kevin summarized it pretty well. This project is to basically take the existing wastewater treatment plant that is out in Newton Township and basically dismantle that and put in a pumping station and pump the sewage up along Newton Ransom Road to Enola Road, past Lands Pond, and connect to the sewer system that is on Winola Road, right above Noble Road, where the senior high comes down. And the reason for that is this plant is a very, very old plant. It only services two customers. It services the hospital and it services the middle school and the elementary school now. So those are the only two that are currently in there. We'd be looking at a significant upgrade to meet what are the current treatment requirements. It's an old trickling filter system, doesn't really have the capabilities to be upgraded easily, or we would have to be replaced in order to meet the current and pending wastewater treatment requirements for out in that area and for a discharge out to a small creek. So for those reasons, and also for a lot of environmental reasons and safety reasons, it makes a lot more sense to do away with these small plants wherever you can and consolidate them into larger wastewater treatment facilities. That being said, this is an interesting project because we're dealing with a number of different entities. And we've been involved in these kind of projects before. So the project is actually located in Newton Township. It services, as I said, a hospital that is partially in Newton Township and partially in South Abington Township. It services the school, which is Abington Heights School District, which obviously covers multiple municipalities. The connection is to South Abington Township. The flow would start in South Abington Township, then go through Clark Summit Borough, and then back through South Abington Township, and eventually wind up at the Arwa plant. In general, the amount of flow that we're talking about, and again, I can talk a little bit about how we're going to get there, but is about 60,000 gallons. And that's split about 2/3, 1/3 between the hospital and the school. There is this whole process, because of all the players that are in there, we're sort of taking it one step at a time as directed by Department of General Services. So the players from the state side are the Department of General Services is providing the funding through a capital appropriation. The user is actually the Department of DHS, Department of Human Services, which operates and runs the hospital and operates and runs the current existing plant. So what we've completed a study that looked at either upgrading the plant or making a connection. We've determined that the most cost-effective and environmentally responsible thing is to make this connection. We've looked at a couple of different routes to make the connection into the regional wastewater treatment plant. And I'll ask Kevin to bring up the route that we've chosen that we discussed shortly. But in order to get there, there's a lot of agreements that have to be set up. Number one, the state recognizes that they're going to have agreements with South Abington Township and Newton Township and Clark Summit Borough, and they recognize that they don't want to impose any cost on any of the municipalities. So any of those, they will sign an agreement that basically says any costs that you incur relative to legal review or engineering review or administrative costs related to this project, they will reimburse you for that, so that there's no financial burden at all on the borough. And they're going to sign a similar agreement with the other municipalities that are involved. In addition, there'll be a planning exercise that'll be required, an Act 537 plan. So Clark Summit Borough, Clark's Green, and South Abington all jointly adopted what's a 537 plan that was developed when the Arwa plant was upgraded. But technically speaking, you each have your own individual 537 plan. Although a joint plan was developed, when you adopted it, you adopted that portion of the plan that applied to your individual municipality. So we will need to do that again to update that 537 plan, because you're going to have some sewage flowing through your system that from a different municipality than currently goes on now. You have interchanges between the three municipalities, Clark's Green, Clark Summit, and South Abington, where different amounts of sewage from different places flow back and forth between each other's lines. I don't think anything flows through Clark Screen's lines, but they use the other municipalities' lines. And you have an intermunicipal agreement that creates a cost structure for reimbursing some of those costs for those pass-throughs. But in this case, because we're talking about a new municipality, we would have to update that 537 plan. EEP would become involved because, again, besides these municipalities, you've also got Newton Township that would have to be a part of this arrangement. So there's a lot of different pieces of paperwork out there. And in order to sort of start the ball rolling, what and the reason I'm in front of you tonight is DGS has sort of asked that we take sort of one small step at a time, and that's to approach all of the players that are involved. And I think the last one is the school district, although we've had informal discussions with them. We'll be in front of them at their next meeting. And basically talk to them, try to answer your questions, and in return ask for those municipalities to pass a motion or a resolution just basically in support of the project. What DGS doesn't want to have happen is sort of get, well, 6 months down the road and then have somebody raise their hand and say, there's no way we're ever going to agree to this for X, Y, and Z reason. So this is not an agreement. It's sort of a sign of general support in the direction we're going. There will have to be formal agreements that will have to be reviewed by a solicitor and voted upon and executed by the borough eventually. But this is just, if you will, sort of a non-binding resolution to say, yeah, we're in favor of this project, and we could see it going forward. And that's the reason that we're in front of you tonight, is to ask you to pass that motion. The one item that's a little bit different for your municipality than some of the other municipalities is your Act 537 plan with ARWA identified a section of your existing sewer line that they called out to either be replaced or for you to take continued efforts to try to reduce I&I to that section. And that's a piece of 276 feet of sewer that runs from basically Bedford Avenue down to the railroad track. And the pipe that's in there right now is a metal 15-inch pipe. And so what we would propose to do as a part of this project is upgrade that pipe. We don't have to upgrade it much, actually, just to a 15-inch, but we would also change it to plastic, which substantially increases the carrying capacity of the pipe. And the reason for that is in order to create some additional capacity in that pipe that would be available to someone other than the borough. DGS cannot do that work themselves because it's outside of the state right of way and outside of their property that they own. What they would typically do, like if this were an upgrade to a water line where we needed a bigger water line, DGS all the time sign what they call a utility improvement agreement. So they would sign an agreement with the water company saying, this is what we'd like you to do in order to accommodate our project. And once again, we'll cover all the costs for that, whether it's construction, administrative, engineering, design, legal related to that. That whole dollar amount of that project would be covered by general services. And again, under a separate agreement where they would, where there would be an estimate of the amount of cost, they would turn that money over to you. You would run that project, and then there'd be a reconciliation. If it came in over, then they would pay extra. Obviously, if it came in less, you would just return the unused funds. And that's for that 276-foot piece of sewer line that we'd want to have replaced. Kevin, maybe you want to bring up the map, and I'll just give you an idea of the routing that we're talking about. And then after that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. So on the far left-hand side of the map, you can see there's where the red line and the green line all come together. That's the area of where the hospital is right now and where the treatment plant is. So essentially, we would put a pump station at the end of that red line at the far left edge. And again, the green line and the blue line are other alternatives that we looked at. But the most cost effective, and you can kind of see it there, the most direct route is along Newton Ransom Road, Boulevard into Winola Road, and then past Lance Pond, and then connecting into the gravity sewer lines. You may notice there that the end of that, there is an existing gravity line along Lance Pond right now. But we went out and we surveyed a number of those sewer lines, and we determined that, as you might expect, they're at a very minimal slope as they run next to the pond. The pond obviously is all flat and at one elevation, and so the sewer lines that run next to them are relatively flat there. So our connection point is sort of near the end of the pond where the road starts to go downhill. So we pick up some extra grade, and we have sufficient capacity. If you zoom out, the light yellow areas then are just tracing the route of where we go. We go down Winola Road, we cut just for a little bit down along Electric Street. And again, this is just tracing your existing sewer line. And then it goes in between the roads and comes out down around Center Street in Bedford. And then you can see there's a little short piece of red in there also, which I've tagged as replaced 276 feet of sewer main. Now you jumped, Kevin.
Sorry, let me back up.
Right, that's right. Get you back on the.
Joe, there it is. Jack, Joe, that's the section that you were talking about being replaced, the metal to the.
Right, that's that short piece that basically comes from the road and just runs in that open area and then just connects to a sewer line that's down at the top of the railroad track embankment. And that runs along, the existing sewer line runs along the railroad track, then comes back out and goes through the shopping center, comes back out on 611, runs down 611 all the way to the treatment plant in Chinchilla. And again, your 537 plan had mapped out all these areas, so we were able to utilize that information in terms of evaluating the routing to get to the plant. Overall, to give you some sense of what we're talking about in terms of flow, if I say 60,000 gallons a day, that may seem like a lot, or you don't have a sense of it. If I put it in terms of EDUs, equivalent dwelling unit, which is essentially one house, we're talking about 172 EDUs. The borough has approximately 2,700 EDUs. And Arwa itself treats, I think, about 7,700 EDUs. So in the quote grand scheme of things, this is not really a large flow to be accommodated or treated. One other thing I didn't touch on is the existing wastewater treatment plant has had, by agreement, has allowed connections of local development from Newton Township into the treatment plant. Since that agreement first started, and it's been amended a number of times, that's never occurred. There's not been any connections whatsoever into that treatment plant. And now, given its current state, it really doesn't have any capacity to accept any treatment or any additional connections. But that is part of the 537 planning process. We've already talked to DEP, and DEP will want us to look at least probably we'll do a sort of a short 537 plan. And it will look at servicing the school, the hospital, and a very limited amount of land adjacent to the hospital where a developer has already put up a plan. And that plan is around, and again, it's nothing is finalized, but that's around 100 some EDUs. Again, we're not sure if that's going to go anywhere or not. If it does, we would incorporate that into, it would become part of the 537 plan. It would be in front of you for approval. It'd be in front of Newton Township for approval and Arwa. But we would accommodate that also. They would also share in the costs, a proportionate share of the costs, which would lower the costs for the state and for the school district. So there is an advantage there also. And they would be paying just, and I should probably say this also. The state is fully intending on, and has put into its budget, paying the full amount of the fees that are charged by the municipalities, by our offer treatment and South Abington for connection, and for the connection fees also. So all that money would accumulate into the local municipalities. And going forward, they'd be paying annual fees. So they're not looking for any kind of discount on any of those fees. All right, I think I've talked plenty. So what questions can I answer?
I just have one question for you, Joe. I'm sure that you've spoke at length with Borough on this, and this is something that they are in favor of going along with also?
Yes.
Okay. That's our key factor there. They're the main source. So if they're the lead, I'm sure that, you know, we absolutely can work along with you on this.
Great.
I just have a question. What does the total sort of start to finish time frame on this look like? When would this come back before us for, you know, for us to vote on actually moving this forward, the revised 537s and all that?
So we would hope to be in construction in 2022. So the 537 plans, we don't think will be ready for adoption till probably sometime at least in September. You know, we're taking these first steps to get everybody saying, yes, that's how we want to proceed. But that if you've done a 537 plan, even a small one and a limited one is still a process to go through, to put that together, and then eventually bring it to all the municipalities. They've all got to advertise it. They all have to vote on it. If there's any you have to allow for public comment. If there isn't any public comment, you got to address it. So that part of the process just by itself is probably at least 4 months, you know, and then DEP, at the end, DEP's got to advertise it in the Pennsylvania Bulletin. So, but while that process is going on, the state would still push forward with doing the design because we would have to design the pumping station, design the force main. We'd have to go to PennDOT and get the permits. We'd have to go to DEP and get the permits. So that process will go concurrently. They won't finish one and then start the next. So because of that, we think we would probably be in construction in 2022, probably earlier in the year rather than later. In terms of agreements, I would think after we sort of get this series of everybody passing these sort of what I'm calling non-binding resolutions or a motion of support, DGS will then turn loose their lawyers to draw up the formal agreements. And I would expect that those would be back in front of you within 30 to 45 days, you know, because they want to make sure that everybody's in agreement. They want to make sure that you're protected too. I mean, you want to make sure you're protected, that you've got an agreement that says, hey, you know, we don't mind paying Kevin, but we, you know, we want somebody else to pay for it, you know, to actually foot the bill. So that's the kind of thing we want to make sure is written down early in the process. And again, with the 537 plan, that would be something too. We wouldn't come to you at the end with a finished 537 plan. We'd have some interim steps in there where we'd ask to meet with you as we go along, show you where we're at. It's probably the best I can describe it.
Right, does anyone else have any questions for Joe? I think this is just the first step in a process that is still far away from getting off the ground. But we're glad that we, you know, to have notice of this so that we could review it. And I know I sent this to our engineer, Bob Nagley, and I know that if he had any questions, he'd raise them as well.
Right.
Yeah, and I have spoke with Bob also. So
Great,
you know,
good. It sounds like it's going in a very good direction. I know that the situation at the Clark Summit State Hospital, the sewage treatment plant is in dire condition. So I knew sooner or later something was going to have to be advanced on it. And this is probably a very good direction for them to go.
Joe, Jerry's on the board at the state hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so as I said, we knew that it was teetering. So now it's going to take time, but it's going in a good direction. That's a positive look at it.
In our objective in all, we've done a number of these, and we find that with a lot of the state institutions, we've done them with prisons, you know, they were very much out in the country when they were first built. And then, you know, they've had these facilities, whether it's water or sewer, for a very long time, and they don't want to be in the utility business. That's not what they do. And they know it's better environmentally and from safety to turn it over to a much bigger organization. So that's the objective.
Great. Yeah. Okay, well, we're ready to move to start our starting point from it, and we're going to go off our lead with our solicitor.
Okay, great. I mean, I had provided sort of a draft motion of support, if that's acceptable to you, or you want to, you know, if you need to change the wording in it, but we would ask if you could pass something formally, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Joe Durkin?
So Joe, we'll take a look at the motion. Did you forward that to me? If not,
Yeah.
okay.
Kevin, I can give you the date if you want.
Okay, and then we could take that up, you know, we'd have to vote at one of our public meetings.
Yep.
Okay. Good deal.
Yeah. If you need me to resend it, let me know, but it should be in that last email I sent to you before the map.
Okay.
All right.
Find it.
Well, thank you for being with us tonight, Joe, and it was very nice meeting you. Thank you.
Well, it's nice to be home.
Well, welcome
Thank you.
home.
Mrs. Carey, though, Joe didn't mention his wife's relative, though. The legendary Monsignor McGarry.
Oh, my God.
Yes, that's his wife's cousin, so he's.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
And I will tell you, I was an altar boy for Jimmy when he was a new priest in his first year down at OLS. So.
He
well,
married us.
Oh,
He was-
did he?
Yes, yes. We loved him.
Oh, he was at Nativity when I was in grade school. He was our pastor then
Mhm.
for the whole time I was at Nativity, basically.
and
Yeah.
today he had me delivering Easter baskets to a lot of our senior citizens that are staying at home. And they were absolutely thrilled that he thought of them. So he pulls everybody together in our parish, that's for sure.
Well, thank you very much. I'll let
Joe.
you know you have a big agenda, I imagine, and I'll get out of your way if nobody has any more questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay, next thing we have is bids that we need to open. So be patient with me while I open each one. We actually ended up getting 8 bids for the Linden Street project that we had tried last month, but the bids came in too high, so we had to advertise it.
Okay.
So with 8 bidders, I'm hopeful. The first bid is from Umbriac Trucking in Harley, PA. Their bid is $69,290 even. The second bid is from Lindy Construction. A double seal, so be patient. And their bid is, wow, $69,390 even.
Wow, how
I
close.
know, that never happens.
No,
Okay, the third bid is with Sikora Brothers. Wow, their bid is $173,096.
don't waste our ink on that one.
Okay, this one is from MHW Construction, Matt Williams. You all know them because we've done a lot of work with him.
Oh, okay.
Let's see what he says. $45,036 even. So far, the low bid.
Yeah.
The next one is from Bellinger Construction, who, by the way, just started the work on Grove Street. We finally got the materials in, or they finally were able to get the materials in. $68,750. The next one is Bob Miller Construction. $59,728. Pioneer Construction. I'm sorry. Can't get these out. There we go. $65,285. And the last bid is from Minichi Incorporated. $94,500. So as is procedure, what we're going to do is I'm going to submit all the bids to the engineers to review to make sure that they meet all the qualifications. And with their approval, we'll award next week to MHW Construction for $45,036.
Great.
Well, Matt Williams is also a local resident in the area too, isn't he, Virginia?
Yeah, he actually lives in Glenburn right now. I
Right.
believe it's Glenburn, or he was in Glenburn. He might have moved to La Plume. But
Okay.
he's local. He has a business out in that area. He's done a lot of work for the borough. He's always offered us great pricing, even if he hasn't been the lowest. He's always been very competitive. So I'm very happy to be working with him.
That would be great. Sounds
Mhm.
good.
So he's a responsible bidder.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt.
Everything.
All right, so we'll get you the letter from the engineers before the meeting next week so that we can vote on this, okay?
Okay, thank you very much, Virginia.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is our ordinance 2021-01, our truck traffic amendment, Kevin.
Yes, so this is just we discussed this at our last meeting. It's ready for final passage on Wednesday. It's the expanded truck traffic ordinance, which identifies additional roadways and blocks where truck traffic is prohibited. And I think several council members provided me with roadways that were included, as well as our police chief, who provided me with a list of roadways. So this maintains the ones that are already designated for no truck traffic and expands it.
Okay. So we'll be ready to vote on this for next week, right, Kevin?
Yes, it's been advertised and everything, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, we're good then.
No questions then? Great.
Okay, thank you. The next item is ordinance 2021-02, our police pension amendment. That was the number that had to be changed, Virginia.
Right. This is just a formality because the police are offering to contribute 5.5% of their salary towards the pension. And we're current ordinance limited it to 5%. So we needed to amend it to allow them to give the extra contribution, which is very generous of the police.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on that ordinance? Okay, we'll move that to next week. Thank you, Virginia.
Mhm.
The next, it's resolution 2021-04, our CDBG agreement.
Not easy being popular.
Yeah.
It's a telemarketer, Kevin. Okay,
I try to tell you that your car warranty is expired.
fires.
Yeah.
I'd be disappointed.
No,
if
they
you didn't
want
take
to
that
take my
call.
college loan for me. Okay, the next one is our agreement with the CDBG, Virginia.
Yeah, the CDBG needs to be updated each year. So this is just, the agreement is attached, and then we just have to, if the agreement's acceptable, we have Jerry, we vote on the resolution 2021-04, authorizing Jerry to sign it, basically. That Kevin has looked over the agreement. There was a slight change, and otherwise everything's good on his end.
Right, I try to sneak in that language that, because to prevent another situation like we had with Bedford Street and, the Valvano case.
Exactly, yeah, that.
So they accepted some of my changes.
I was surprised they did.
I was too. See, it's just never give up.
But you know what, Kevin, that absolutely will protect us. So that was an excellent decision to make.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Basically, what they said is all cost overruns are on the borough's back, which when we don't have control over the project, that doesn't really make sense. So I said, as long as the said cost overruns have been identified and approved in writing by the borough prior to said cost being incurred. So in other words, if there's work being done that we authorize while they're there, say they're doing curbs, and we say, well, you know what, as long as you're here, go one more block and do those curbs, even though they're outside the project, then we would be, that would be fair to say that we're responsible for it. But
Right.
if it's something that's out of our control and we're not aware of, then I don't want us to have to foot that bill.
Exactly. Okay, well, thank you for that, Kevin. We appreciate that. The next is the discussion regarding the American Rescue Plan grant proceeds.
Yeah, if you want, Kevin was going to look into it. I've attended 2 different webinars on it. Jerry attended one. Ultimately, we know we're getting money. Roughly, it's going to be about 480,000. What we do know is we will probably see 50% of that in June of this year and the other 50% June of next year. The plan, the American Rescue Plan, spells out 4 specific intentions for it. And I said specific, they're really, that's the problem, is they're not. There are 4 intentions, but they're not detailed. There's the entire plan for including the stimulus payments and everything was only 13 pages long. So what they're doing is they're handing the money to the state and the state is going to distribute it to us. The state treasury, no, I'm sorry, the US Treasury has to set the conditions on the use of the money. So we're still waiting to hear from them what our specifics are. What we do know is we can use it to reimburse lost revenue, for example, taxes, sewer, things, et cetera, that we didn't get. And I'm meeting with the Finance Committee on Wednesday. I've started trying to do an accounting of that. We do know that we could use it to do some kind of premium pay for employees, but there's not enough information about that. We do know that we can use it for COVID-specific expenses and to make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Behind that, there's a whole lot more. Ultimately, however we use it, if they say you can't use it the way we want to use it, but we can use it elsewhere, if that money was budgeted, then we can take that budgeted money and move it to where we need to move it. So one way or the other, this is going to free up general fund and sewer fund monies to be spent on our priorities, because this will pick up some of the things that, we were going to have to spend money on anyway, but now they're giving us the money. So it's a really nice thing. The other thing is that we know is that we have until 2024 to spend it.
Yeah.
So we have, a lot of the bigger projects that require a long bidding and just defining and then bidding and possibly permits. So we're good with the time. And more information, I think we'll just have to wait until we hear from the Treasury. And as I said, I'll meet with the Finance Committee on Wednesday. So maybe on Friday. So maybe by next Wednesday, they'll be able to give you some more specifics.
Great.
I mean, I know, Jerry, you and I had spoke on this this issue to try to get further clarification on what the parameters are in terms of spending this. And to that end, I did reach out to the Chief of Staff for Matt Cartwright, but he hasn't gone back to me with any type of directives, and maybe they just don't know themselves. But as Virginia indicated, it's very, very vague in terms of what this is supposed to be used for. What seems to be clear from everyone is that if it has some nexus to COVID, whether that be creating more office space or anything related to COVID, is certainly covered. Protecting employees by creating more spacing, obviously, in any type of PPE is allowed. So, but if I get any more, I will. I've reached out to the Association of Boroughs. They really don't have anything yet. So we'll just have to. I think we just sit tight and until we get clearer directives on this.
And we won't see the money till June anyway. So we have time.
And also on that same note, Kevin, I know we had a discussion with Amy from
Weschler, yeah, from Casey's office.
right, but should we be going through Casey's office or through Congressman Matt Cartwright?
I think you try everybody to see if anybody has, if anyone's developed any type of directive or policy paper that could help us, that we could use as a guide. I think that, that was smart. I know other municipalities who also spoke with Senator Casey's office, but they left more confused than when they walked in. So we're just going to have to wait and see if we can get more clear directives on this.
Well, and also in the same conversation, I did speak with the chief, and his concern is with the body cam, so I can probably discuss that with them too, just to see what direction that's moving. So
that's actually the next item on our agenda, because the money I think we need to vote on next week.
Okay, now this is also another ticket item that I was wondering, Virginia, can this be used with our funding that we get? Because this is equipment for our police department.
Again, we don't have the answers, but like I said before, if we can't use it for this, but we're saving money that was budgeted elsewhere because we're going to be able to use this grant money, then we can just move it over. So ultimately, even if we can't directly use it for this purpose, we're still going to have money freed up to use. So I think that this is important. Ultimately, what Chris is asking for is he applied for that grant for body cams and it was a 50% match.
Right.
Well, we got the grant, but since then the pricing has changed. I guess it had to do with the size of our server and the new software. So it's actually going to cost us $6,000 more than we had originally planned and budgeted. So Chris is asking for permission to still get the body cam, spend the extra $6,000 because we're talking, over $6,000. It's some money that we'll have to vote on next week. So again, the finance committee will talk about it on Friday, and they'll make a recommendation for us, and we can vote on it next week.
Okay. That sounds fine, Virginia. Thank you for that good information.
Mhm.
All right, so that took care of those two things. And the
Mhm.
last one is our CDBG. They need the assessment package.
Yeah, first of all, we get money from CDBG funds every year, for those of you that are new. We have to have a public hearing on that money, and we are going to have it. It's going to be April 28th, our work session, okay, before our work session. But we also need to, and by the way, the amount that we're getting for CDBG money is $103,905, which includes $18,702, which is actually administrative expenses. So less that out, and that's what we're going to be getting, about $85,000, you might say. That money, CDBG money, must be used for the elderly, the low income, or seniors. And there are very specific qualifications, and we need to come up with a list of priority spending. By the way, last year's money is going to rehab our elevator to the Borough building, and that's been bid out right now. So hopefully we'll be seeing that work start soon. But anyway, so this is something that we need to discuss, and they need to get a list from us by June 25th. So maybe next week we could talk about a committee to work on this.
Okay.
Virginia, for the benefit of the newer members of council, do you want to just give some other examples of projects that have been approved for the block grant program?
Sure. CDBG, Community Development Block Grant money, like I said, low income, elderly, or handicapped. One of the things that we used it for, and we actually mentioned it before, was Bedford Street sidewalks. We were able to justify the money because the senior living center, Bedford Towers, constitutes probably 95% of the people that actually use the sidewalk on Bedford Street, and they qualify as low income and or elderly and or handicapped. So we were able to get new sidewalks on that road with that money. We have used that money like I said, last year's money is being used to rehab the elevator at the Borough building because we need that for handicap accessibility into the Borough offices. We have done curb cuts throughout town where we've had, ability for people to walk across the street and not have to step up over a curb. But it is money that the county handles. We never touch the money. They do the bidding for the project. They supervise it. We are involved in the process, but we don't have any direct say. It's all indirect. And they have to survey the project. There are certain, like a curb cut is no doubt that the curb cut is because handicap accessibility, but certain other things, they'll have to survey the community where we want to do the work to make sure it qualifies. The sidewalk on Depot Street, we were able to do that because the people that live on Depot Street, the majority of them met the low income category. We do have a lot of town that won't qualify for our CDBG work, which is a good thing.
But and we also did an awful lot of work at our senior center through this grant. So
yes,
that was also very helpful. But now that that's out of our hands, we've got to really put our thinking cap on and find other good projects to use the funding for.
Right.
If anyone has been to downtown Pittston, recently, I know that all the sidewalks and I think even the period lighting was all done through this block grant program.
That would have had to have been, well, yeah, the residents that live in that area would have had to qualify as low income.
Yeah, and it looks
But that's like,
it looks very nice. Yeah.
yeah, like Depot Street. Depot Street really prettied up after that work.
Kevin, was this residential area or was it downtown?
It was downtown, and actually Joe Durkin, he's the engineer for Pittston. He did the whole project. I know that.
Oh, okay.
It looks really nice.
Yeah, they've done a lot of nice things in Pittston.
Mhm.
Well, it's certainly something for us to look into.
Because it helps the businesses too, indirectly.
Exactly. And that works both ways too, because seniors, handicapped and elderly all use the business. So I don't know how we can twist and turn that, but we will look into it.
I'll ask Joe how it worked for them.
Very good. That would be very helpful, Kevin. Thank you. Okay, does anybody have, we review our agenda for next week, and does anybody have any questions on our agenda for next week?
Ms. Carey, I have a question from earlier about the biddings we discussed.
Okay,
When it comes to choosing a company, do we just choose the cheapest one, or do we actually take into consideration the services and quality of each company has to
The
offer?
state requirements are that we have to accept the lowest qualified bid. So that's why we have to be very specific with what we want done, what materials we want used and so forth. And we itemize everything. Then the bidders go and the engineers have to make sure that the bid was qualified. We can turn down the lowest price if we have a legitimate reason to say that the bidder is not qualified. But we can't say, well, we're going to take the middle of the road price because we trust this bidder better. You've got to have a good reason to not accept the low bid before you can move up.
Okay, thank you.
okay, that was a good question though, Archie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mrs. Carey, one other thing. I know on the agenda, Commissioner Shermack was supposed to appear tonight. I just got a text message from him. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to make it tonight. He's been at the county COVID-19 vaccine site. So he wanted me to give his best to the council, and he would request hopefully to be able to make it to next work section next month.
Okay, that's fine. That was a courtesy of him to let you know. Thank you, Bob. Okay, and then we have our personnel meeting with Josh and Bob and myself, Virginia, on Friday morning at 9.
Finance, not personnel.
The finance, but yeah, we have
Yes.
personnel with Shedlock too, so. Okay. Okay, very good. Well, if we have no other questions, I wanted to wish everybody a very, very blessed Easter and
Happy Passover.
exactly. Thank you very much for all being on board for this evening.
All righty. Have a good night, everyone.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter, good night.
Stay safe.
Thank